I'm Mandy Yarkich from Creative Matters, and you're listening to Creative Matters on Air, where I have conversations with new and established artists from around New Zealand. I love to listen to artists' stories and learn about their creative process, and maybe you do too, which is why I've made this podcast, to inspire, inform and educate. I hope you can take away something positive and encouraging from each of these amazing stories to help you on your own creative journey. Welcome to Creative Matters Episode 6. Thank you so much for listening. Today I'm talking to Marlon Hart. Marlon is an illustrator artist who has lived in Muriwai, northwest of Auckland, New Zealand, for nearly 30 years. He spent his childhood growing up in Vancouver, Canada, which instilled in him a great love of nature and culturally left a lasting impression. Working in advertising as an art director and illustrator for more than 3 decades, Marlon has honed his fine art practice using a wide range of styles and artistic mediums. Welcome to Creative Matters, Marlon. So nice to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be here, Mandy.
It's great. And, you and I have been friends for quite some time, haven't we?
Around about 15 years or thereabouts, I think.
That's a long time. And we had mutual friends, I think, when we lived in town.
Yes.
So that was a good connection. And I'm very good friends with your darling wife.
Yes.
Yes, she's a darling, eh?
She is a darling.
All right, so it's really nice that you're here, and I'm so excited to hear your story. I know that you've got incredible stories to tell, and you always tell them with a lot of oomph and vigour.
So many stories, not enough time.
Exactly. So the challenge for us is going to be keeping it around an hour, but I'm sure we'll be good. So just to start with, Marlon, can you tell us where you were born, your childhood, and if your childhood was full of creativity?
Well, it's hard to admit this, but I was actually born in Australia. But as which is where my parents actually met, even though my dad's a Kiwi and my mum's European. And as a very small baby, came to New Zealand, and we lived in my grandparents' batch at Piwakawaka Bay for a few months. When my father had a sudden rush of blood to the head and decided that we needed to move to Canada. And so we moved to Canada when I was still just a baby, before I was 1 year old. And we were going to go to Toronto, but we landed in Vancouver. And my parents fell in love with Vancouver, so decided to stay there and not move on to Toronto.
Wow.
So I spent my whole childhood growing up in and around Vancouver, and that beautiful area around British Columbia.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
Just fabulous,
yeah. So gorgeous. We lived just on the edge of the San Juan Islands.
Oh, yes.
For 6 months.
Yes.
Yeah, in Anacortes. So that was not Canada, but, not too far away.
It's very close. That whole Pacific Northwest coast is just an incredible part of the world. Fabulous
so beautiful.
energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, not dissimilar to the kind of west coast of New Zealand in certain respects.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So what was your childhood like in Canada?
Oh, it was a brilliant way to grow up. I was an only child, but I actually do have a half-brother, but I didn't know I had a half-brother. It was kept secret for me for reasons known only to my parents until I was a young adult. But I grew up very much in the forests and going to the coast around Vancouver. My dad was an artist, and he was also a keen snorkeler and scuba diver. And back in the 60s, scuba diving was a pretty new thing. And so he introduced me to snorkeling at the age of 2. And my earliest memory is that there was a canyon behind our house, forested canyon, and my dad bought me those little plastic mask and snorkel and fins, and we walked down to the stream, and he put the mask and snorkel and fins on me and picked me up, and he lowered me into the stream. And I remember that sensation of his hands around my rib cage and lowering me into the stream, and then the sight of seeing fish and rocks and things underwater. It was spectacular. So I went camping a lot with sometimes with both my parents, but a lot just with my dad. Lakes, mountains, rivers, forests, and all the animals, of course. The animals were fabulous. You know, I have memories of bears and moose and owls and bobcats and lynx, you know. So all of that was just a fabulous way to grow up. And in the 60s, it was so much more carefree. Like on Saturday mornings, I'd get up super early and I was told be home by dark.
Yeah.
And we lived very close to the woods, so I'd go off into the woods for the day and come home.
It's such a common thing, isn't it, for people our age?
Oh, it was great.
Yeah, just head off and come back, just before dark.
Didn't wear a helmet on your bike, didn't wear a seatbelt in the car.
And we're still alive, oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so your dad, what sort of art did he do?
Well, my dad from a very young age was an artist. He had a lot of artistic talent. He was a very big, strong man. He was into athletics and physical stuff. He was built like a bear, and he had hands like hams and fingers like steel sausages, you know. But to see those massive hands pick up a fine little paintbrush and do a delicate piece of artwork, it was quite amazing to see. And how we went to Canada is where he met my mum, he'd been working as a commercial artist. They were called commercial artists in those days in Australia. And when they came back to New Zealand, he managed to score a job in Toronto. Days before the internet, of course, so this was all letters back and forth and the occasional long-distance phone call. And when we arrived in Vancouver, they loved it so much, decided to stay, as I said before. So Dad had to look for work, and he found work at an art studio called Trigraphic, which was in the city of Vancouver. And he did commercial artwork. He had like a office space there with marker pens, those lovely, we used to call them squeakers, those lovely marker pens that smell great. You know?
Yeah,
I used to reckon the red ones smelled best. And quite often he had to work on the weekends. So on Saturday mornings, like one of my fondest memories was Dad taking me into work with him and going in there, and it smelt of ink and paint because they did printing there as well. And he'd set me up at one of the other guys' desks, drawing boards, and give me a box of squeakers, magic markers. And we'd sit there all day. I'd draw my stuff and he'd draw his stuff. And that was a real treat for me, going to work with my dad on the weekend. So I've been drawing since I can remember. And I always had encouragement from my parents. Both my parents were very artistic. The interesting thing with my dad, though, is he never once ever complimented me, ever. Like he'd always look at what I'd done and gone, "Oh, why did you draw the hands like that?" Or, you know, "Why is it like that? That looks a bit
old
odd."
School.
You know, so it was never, "Hey, well done, son."
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And my mum was she was complimentary, but it didn't mean much. I'd be like, "Hey, look, Mum, I've just drawn a picture of this knight fighting a dragon, and the dragon's bitten the guy's leg off, and there's blood going everywhere." And "Oh, that's nice, dear." Lovely. You know,
I can just imagine you doing that. Oh, dragons and knights feels very Marlon to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, so I did have that encouragement from my parents. Always had drawing materials at home. And when I wasn't off in the forest or snorkeling with my dad or camping or going to school, as I had to do, one of my activities that I loved doing was just sitting in my room drawing. So the drawing and art has been there for me since I can remember.
All the way through.
Yeah.
Yeah, so great, isn't it? And when you went through school, like high school and that kind of thing, were you studying art then, or were you not really interested at that time at school so much?
Well, we left Canada when I was 10, and we travelled for about a year. There's quite a story around that. We were going to live in Spain. And in fact, we did get to Spain and we lived there for a little while, and then the whole thing fell apart and we had no money left. And had broken my heart to leave Canada. Like, I really didn't want to go. So when we ran out of money and everything went wrong in Spain, Dad and Mum decided to come back to New Zealand. So I was 11 by the time I got to New Zealand. I was going to go into Form 1, but they put me a year ahead. I went into Form 2. And then I went to Auckland Grammar School in Auckland. And this was very early 70s, 71, 2, 3, 4. And Auckland Grammar School, it was like you either learnt Latin because you were going to be a lawyer, or you got really good at maths because you were going to be an accountant, or you played rugby or cricket.
Mm.
And I was an artist, and I was a year ahead, so I was little. So I kind of didn't fit in. I was very fortunate because I had a fabulous English teacher called Mr. Trembath, who really instilled in me a passion for Shakespeare and literature. And so I had that love of writing and stories and literature and plays and Shakespeare and all of that. And the second year I was at Auckland Grammar, they introduced technical drawing. And I had a great technical drawing teacher who also coached the school basketball team. And I got into tech drawing, so fine drafting, the technical side of drawing. And we had a great art teacher. His name was Stan Black. And to give you an idea of how popular art was at Auckland Grammar, when I was there were 2 people in the art class.
Oh, my goodness.
There was me and a guy called Craig Christie.
Oh, wow.
That was 5th form, 6th form.
You've got
And there was one year I was
names.
there was one year I was there. There wasn't even art in the curriculum for the year I was in. There was art history, so I did art history. So that was great. I learned all about the Renaissance and the Pre-Raphaelites and the Cubists and all of that. So that gave me a good grounding. So I was able to, when I left grammar, I actually had done a lot of art and kept my art practice up. And a lot of it was thanks to having those good teachers for that.
Isn't that amazing that so few children studied art in the 70s?
Yeah. It was no. Sit down and learn your maths, learn your English.
It wasn't really valued, was it?
And don't get me started on algebra.
Oh my God, I've got bad memories of that too. Yeah.
But leaving school. And getting into art after school, my passion was, like we've talked about Canada and growing up loving animals and all of that, and diving and seeing all the fish underwater. When we were living in Spain, there was an octopus that lived in a cave around the corner. I used to visit the octopus every day, a bit like that movie at the moment.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I had this love of animals. So when I was getting ready to leave school, I sat my UE, managed to pass my UE. I didn't get it accredited. I had to sit it.
Wow, you did well to pass.
And I was talking to the one other guy I did art with, Craig Christie, one day. And he said, well, what are you going to do when you leave school next year? And I said, well, I'm thinking of going to university and doing either zoology or marine biology because I loved snorkeling. I was into spearfishing and used to spend all my weekends away out at the Barrier or Waiheke or somewhere. And so marine biology might be my thing, And I said to him, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to go to ATI, which was Auckland Technical Institute, which was before Unitec, and they do a really good graphic arts course. So I'm going to go to graphic arts school. And I went, oh, that sounds good. I might do that. And I did.
Oh, wow. with what was his name? Chris?
Chris, yeah. So Craig Christie.
Craig Christie, yeah.
But what happened was you had to put in a portfolio. You had to apply to get in, and they had hundreds of applicants, and they only allowed, 40 or 50 people in for 2 different classes. Craig and I both put our portfolios in over the summer holidays, and he didn't get in, but I did.
Oh,
so
no.
I kind of felt terrible.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder what he's doing now.
Well, he got a job straight afterwards. He was working in a studio doing like finished art and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I went and visited him a couple of times at the studio where he was working. But I did the graphic arts course at ATI. I got into music there as well. And we had some great teachers there. We had a couple of terrible teachers there. But as always, the great teachers really perpetuate your love and help guide you through your love of the particular field that is your passion. And so there was a couple of teachers there that were just awesome. And at the end of 2 years, we had an exhibition. And the second year I was there, they had they introduced a third year, which was a degree year, and it was by invitation only. I got invited back for the third year, but I declined because the end of year exhibition, I got 2 job offers. One was from TV3, what was TV3 at the time, doing all their graphics and their artwork, and the other one was for an advertising agency in Auckland.
Wow.
And I went to the TV3 studios, and they showed me my little cubicle where I'd be working in the little studios and things there. And I looked at that and thought, oh, that looks all right. And then I got offered a job with Leo Burnett Advertising in Auckland. And this was at the end of 1976. And so I went into Leo Burnett with the guys that had offered me the job, and they were awesome guys. And I walked in there, and they were playing Led Zeppelin really loud on a really big stereo in the studio, which was located as far away from the guys wearing suits, which were at the front of the building, down the back of the building. I walked in, and there was all this Led Zeppelin. These guys were half pissed, and I could smell dope. And I went, yeah, I know where I'm going to work. So, yeah, I started working at Leo Burnett, and the guys I were working with, I was a junior art director, of course, because I'd only just turned 18 at the time.
So young.
And my first job in advertising. And I got to go in there and sit at my desk with these really groovy guys and draw all day, beginning of 1977. I got to draw all day and listen to Led Zeppelin. And I was doing storyboards for TV commercials. Illustration was used a lot more in those days in advertising.
Before the days of computers.
Well, yeah, this was like before computers.
Yeah.
Like photo retouching, you actually got a transparency, or you got the actual photo, and a guy with a paintbrush drew on it to do the retouching. That's how low tech it was.
Amazing.
One of the guys that worked in the studio with me, a guy called Gary Bathgate, he was employed full-time as an airbrush artist, and he just sat there and did airbrush stuff all day long. And then a couple of us were employed as art directors, but also we did illustration work and visuals and storyboards. One guy, he was a great art director, Paul Marshall. He was amazing with type. And in that, he'd hand draw a lot of the type. He had a great eye. One of the other guys there, John Tootle, is a fabulous artist in his own right. And after edging his way out of advertising years ago, he's now a very well-known New Zealand artist. And all these guys were great to work with. Yeah. So they encouraged me. They helped guide me. And it was this interesting meld of a very commercial world of advertising and big money and big accounts and everything, but just getting to draw and listen to loud music and misbehave and go to the pub at lunchtime.
I can imagine. Naughty Marlon. Yeah. And so was it, did you feel like you could sort of express your own ideas and come up with your own stuff, or was it quite prescribed at that time?
What happened to me, I worked in advertising from 1976, 77. And some of the time I'd be working full-time in an agency. Other times I'd be working freelance from home with a home studio doing illustration work and visuals and storyboards. And some of the time I went traveling. I'd just go off overseas for a couple of years. I I became very cynical about the advertising industry. And you can imagine why. It's like your job is to take this chocolate bar or this car or this seat on an airplane and sell it to people. And you do that with beautiful images, whether it's a TV commercial or a magazine ad or a billboard. And I slowly became more and more cynical about it. And what happened with my art practice, if you want to call it an art practice, was it became a chore. And I'm not talking about quickly, I'm talking over like quite a few years here. So going back to when I was a little kid, drawing was a pleasure. I'd sit down and just draw. I'd draw for hours. And when I was a teenager, I'd draw till 3 or 4 in the morning and then go to bed because I loved it so much. And similarly, when I was in my 20s, I'd work in advertising, but I'd go home at night and I'd paint or draw or work on something that I was doing just for me. It wasn't for an exhibition or anything, just for the sheer joy of it. But by the time I got into my 30s, the drawing had become a chore. So I didn't do it for relaxation anymore. I didn't do it for my own pleasure. I didn't do it for having an exhibition down the road. I did it less and less because it became hard work. So now that I'm a lot older and I'm not involved with advertising very much at all, a little bit here and there, but not involved with it very much at all, I've rediscovered that pleasure of artwork and drawing and sitting down, picking up a pencil or a paintbrush. And I have this thing I call the cup of tea test. If make myself a cup of tea and I sit down to draw, and if that cup of tea goes cold, which it often does these days, it means I'm really enjoying working on what I'm working on. I become so absorbed in what I'm working on, the tea goes cold. Yeah. So
that's a good
the cup of tea test is working quite well. I've got a lot of cold cups of tea going on. Yeah.
Oh, that's really cool. So after the advertising, I'm just going back a bit again. We'll come to your current practice in a minute. After the advertising, did you leave and get other types of jobs, or did you just start focusing on your art practice then?
No, I like I said, I travelled quite a bit. Like I left New Zealand in 78, 79, came back 1980, travelled all around Europe. Loved that. That, of course, when you travel, you see stuff that influences you. Came back, worked in advertising, mostly freelance, but also some full-time jobs through to about 1987. 1987, I travelled again, Europe and India and Nepal. Came back, did more freelance, and round about 99, I finished my last full-time job in advertising and continued the agency I left. I was on great terms with, so I continued to do work for them on a freelance basis for a few years after that, and working for other advertising agencies, visuals, storyboards, finished illustrations. But slowly less and less and less, and started doing other things.
Yeah, and you've done some really interesting other things, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I've worked in the dive industry. I worked in a dive shop. I was a dive master, rescue diver, qualified Class 4 commercial diver. Oh, wow. I was a karate instructor. I was a sensei, ran a dojo. Gosh, what else have I done?
Animal trainer.
I work in film and television with lovely people like Mark Vetty and Rosie Miles and Bex Watts, Marie Manderson, training animals and wrangling animals for film and TV. And I've done some crazy jobs. We had deer in downtown Auckland, with areas of downtown Auckland fenced off with stags running around and hinds running around downtown Auckland. We've painted cows purple with human body paint for milk and chocolate ads and things like that. So yeah, it's pretty crazy.
And was that just your love of animals that got you into that?
Again, that was my love of animals. Mark Vetty is a friend of mine, and we were sitting there chatting one day, and he said, "Look, I've got all these women working for me, but I need a big, strong guy because we've got all this stuff coming up with bulls and cows." And I was breeding cattle at the time. I was breeding animals at home here at Muriwai called beefalo, which are a cross between North American bison and beef cattle. So Mark knew that I knew my way around a cow. He said, "Come and work for me." So I was working with Mark Vetty, and I still do work with Rosie and Bex and the other guys. I've got a couple of film projects on at the moment that are being shot in New Zealand, because New Zealand's one of the only places in the world that's you can film at the moment, you know.
It's great for New Zealand.
So there's some wonderful film projects happening in New Zealand right now. So I've had a little bit of involvement with a couple of those.
We might need to use my dog Mazzy, Marlon.
Yes.
I think she's very, very good.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right. We've got horses at home. One of the horses we've got was Rosie's horse. It's kind of our horse now. And Ollie's a film horse, and I've used one of my dogs. We got a couple of dogs, and used one of my dogs. He was in a Holden TV commercial not long ago. So yes, there's
and the yoga.
Oh yes, and I became a yoga teacher. I went away to Los Angeles. Gosh, that would have been about 7-8 years ago. Became a Bikram yoga teacher by studying under Bikram Chaudhry. That was a very intense training for about 2 months. 2 months training, living and training in LA. And came back as a yoga teacher and worked in some of the hot yoga studios around Auckland. Quite an experience. And really enjoyed that. But I had a hip replacement a couple of years ago. That slowed me down a bit. But we tested the hip out just some months after the hip replacement. My wife Danielle and I went to Peru and walked the Inca Trail to Machu Picchu, which had been a dream of mine since I was a kid, since I saw a picture of it in a book that my dad gave me when I was a little kid. So that was a good way to check out the hip replacement, see if it was working all right.
Yeah.
So still doing a bit of film work, a little bit of acting work here and there, just little bits, animal wrangling, and working on my artwork right now. Yeah.
Oh, that's so great. And, I've seen a lot of action coming from your studio lately. You seem to be very prolific.
Well, there's, since I was a little kid growing up in Canada, I really embraced the art style and the belief practices and the way of looking at the world of the native peoples around where I grew up. And I started looking at animals in particular, but also the natural world, all things that I loved, through those eyes. So I was looking at these animals, and by the time I grew up, so to speak, by the time I got older, I really wanted to work in that style of the people where I grew up. Beautiful, beautiful tribes and clans, wonderful people. There was where we lived, the main tribe there was the Coast Salish people. And a little bit further north and out on Vancouver Island was what are commonly known the Kwakayutal people, but the proper name is the Piwakawaka people. Wow. And further north, you've got the Nootka, the Haida, the Tlingit, Tsimshian, all with beautiful, beautiful artwork. And I was surrounded by this artwork as a kid. The beautiful long cedar longhouses. And the totem poles in the forests there and along the coast. So I was exposed to that, and I loved it. I embraced it. And so I've had these images of animals in my head that I've wanted to draw in that style, but with my own input, my own through my own eyes as well, but also with influences from things I've seen in my travels as well. There's little things I've seen in Peru and Mexico, in Nepal, in Europe, that particularly Scandinavia, the Viking art, the little bits keep coming through for me. So I sat down and I thought, right, it was after my hip replacement, and my wife Danielle's looking at me and she's going, well, you're sitting there doing nothing, what are you going to do? And I thought, well, now's the time to start working on this series of images I had in my head. So I sat down. The first one I did was orca, and I started doing all the traditional animals from over there. So I was doing orca and bear, and the kind of Canadian woods animals and sea animals. So while I was drawing orca, I had this little epiphany. I went, wow, we've got all these beautiful animals in New Zealand that I love, all the ones that I've dived with as a diver, all the ones I've seen along the coast and in the bush around New Zealand. I should apply this style that I'm working in to all the New Zealand animals. So I did Piwakawaka, fantail, and I did a seal, kekino, and a kingfisher, and I started doing New Zealand animals and birds. And so this has become my series of limited edition prints. And I was talking to my wife Danielle, and she came up with this idea, well, you grew up, you've grown up on both sides of the Pacific Ocean, and you've got all that influence, that input, that inspiration from your childhood in Canada, plus your love of nature and art here in New Zealand, your experience here. And she came up with the name Pacific Crossing. Yeah, so this is what we've called the latest series, Pacific Crossing.
It's so great.
And you've got the indigenous peoples of both sides of the Pacific Ocean with their love of nature, their love of art, the beautiful artwork you see here from the Māori people, and all the amazing artwork I grew up with on the other side of the Pacific Ocean with all the First Nations people from America. And here's me in the middle, just soaking all these wonderful influences up. And with my love of animals, I just kind of put it all together.
It's so perfect.
So we've got this series of all these New Zealand animals coming out in my limited edition prints now. Yeah,
that's so great. And it's nice to bring in the New Zealand connection, isn't it, to your world from when you were younger? But also, perhaps it would be nice to just describe what the works look like. I mean, I know they're sort of single pieces with a white background at the moment, aren't they? Yeah. So maybe talk about the colour palette and give the listeners a feel for your work, people who haven't seen it before. But also just adding that you can see Marlon's blog, and which goes with this podcast, and that has some of the images. So it's a nice thing to do, so you can actually visualize while you're speaking. But if you could just very quickly describe the work, as in sort of what sort of form it takes and colors and that kind of thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I work in lots of different styles. Obviously, with that advertising background, I had to do images in all different styles, all different mediums at the drop of a hat. But this vision that I had for this series has been with me since I was a kid. And it's quite stark. It's very graphic. And I wanted to achieve very flat colors, very, very sharp lines. So having it on a pure white background helps to accentuate that sharpness and make the image even more graphic and stand out. The main color is black, and then normally there's maybe 2, maybe 3 other colors that I work with. And what I do is I use a combination of what was traditional where I grew up, very traditional colors over there. But I extend out from that to making the colors, how would I say it, realistic, true to nature. So I I divert off that path sometimes of doing strong primary colours, and I'll go into more subtle colours depending on the particular animal I'm working on, particular image I'm working on. It depends what seems to suit it. For instance, I was working on tui recently. I've done a tui drawing. And I sat down and I see tuis out the window while I'm working on this, because where we live, we're surrounded by bush and sea. So a lot of these animals that I work on, I have a story about every one, a personal experience. So I'm looking at tuis out the window, and I'm looking at photographs of tuis, and I'm going out and standing in the garden or walking through the bush and looking at them up close. And I'm trying to get the colour right. And I had one of those artist moments. I can't get the colour right. What's wrong with me? And it got very frustrating. And I'd do the colours and I'd show them to Danielle, and she'd go, "Nah, that's not right." Go away. Do it again. And I'd show her the colours. She'd go, "Nah, it's still not right." And
you listen. I mean, how do you find that, having somebody else's input? You obviously listen to your
Danielle's
wife.
a great artist in her own right.
Absolutely.
And a very good eye for colour. So I trust her judgment a lot. So we're constantly showing each other's artwork and going, "What do you think?" And I'll go, "Oh, that looks a little bit furry there, and that blue's a little bit too intense. You need to knock that back." And she'll do the same for me.
That's awesome.
So it's great having someone you live with that you can work with like that.
Yeah.
But it took me forever to get the tui colours right. And when you actually look at the tui, if you analyse it, the colours aren't really tui colours, but it gives the idea of the spirit of the tui, of that flash of colour when you see it flying through the trees just in front of you. So the colours aren't accurate,
which I like,
but they work.
Yeah,
it gives you that tui feeling,
and the connection. You make the connection.
Yeah. And some of my other ones are miles away from the natural colour, but it gives you an idea of the spirit of the animal, and that's what I'm trying to capture with these images, with
really
these
cool.
artworks, is what that animal's about. And if you look at some of them, something that I work with is where I grew up. The people believe that things change shape. So a lot of animals came out of the earth from the underground realm, or some came from the land and went into the sea. For instance, wolves can turn into killer whales, and they go into the sea. And it was the wolves that taught the humans how to hunt whales, like killer whales hunt the other whales. So there's this shape-changing thing. So in my work, sometimes you'll see an animal, but you'll see faces within it, or hands, or even other animals, because also in the Northwest Coast art, there's like an X-ray thing. So you actually see the bones or the muscle tissue of animals, or you'll see what's in its stomach. For instance, I've drawn a bear, and the bear's just had a salmon for lunch, so the salmon's in his tummy. And my frog, you'll see a dragonfly. And one way of looking at that is it's a happy little dragonfly. It's sitting on the frog's back. And the other way of looking at it is frog's just eaten the dragonfly. Yeah. Dragonfly's in his tummy. So there's things going on, but in a very flat, graphic way. So sometimes you don't actually see it initially, and then you'll go, "Oh, there's a face there," or there's a hand there, but the hand's actually this part of the actual animal, or there's a couple of other animals in there,
And you like the idea of it being sort of open to interpretation.
Oh yeah. I've had people look at my artwork and go, like, do a hand and there's an eye in the middle of the hand. They go, "Oh, well, that's a hansa," which is a very old symbol. It's found throughout the world. It's found in India, it's found in Nepal, it's found in Africa, but it's also found in North America. Hands are a very universal symbol in all cultures. And it's a very powerful symbol too. So there's quite a few things going on. But what I've managed to achieve with this is what I wanted, which is very flat, graphic, strong images, quite powerful images. You know.
Yeah.
They look great up big.
Yeah, they do. And they're definitely, impressive and powerful feeling. And I think people love the work. It's just gorgeous.
I'm getting very good reactions and some great compliments from people. Yeah, people like it. Yeah.
And I was just saying earlier that my son Brody, just reacted to your frog.
Yeah.
Like I've never seen him react to an artwork, even though there's a lot of artwork in our home and I make my own work. He doesn't react in the same way,
Yes.
but he connected. In fact, he's asked if he can use the image for his first album, which is interesting.
All right.
Yeah. So
we can do that.
Go.
We can do that.
Plant that seed.
Yeah.
And also, how do you actually go about making it? What's your process?
I'm very much I like the feeling of working with what I'm working with. So when I'm oil painting, I like getting my hands really dirty and working with the oil. But when I'm working on more graphic stuff like this it's very clean and precise. So it's the opposite of what I do when I'm oil painting. I'm very finicky. So I work A3 size with layout paper, and I use the same pencil. It's a clutch pencil, Mars Statler clutch pencil, that my dad bought me when I started doing tech drawing at Auckland Grammar School when I was 14 years old.
Incredible.
I've got the same pencil and I use it every day.
That's amazing.
And I do my initial sketches on A3 paper. I then refine it on A3 paper. I then refine it more on A3 paper, and I get a very, very exact final image on that paper. Now, I've been dragged kicking and screaming into the 21st century. I'm not a techie kind of guy. I'm far from it. I'm not a computer kind of guy. But when we were in lockdown last year, I was working on these to the point where I was ready to actually produce, finish them off, this series. And I was struggling to come up with, how am I going to get that flatness of color, that clean line, that really flat color? And I was thinking, I've got to screen print these. And I've done screen printing, and it's, for some people love it, and I really kind of didn't like it. I've found it.
Didn't like the process or the final result?
Process was okay, but I found it a bit tedious, if you're with me, just for me, Other people love it,
and messy.
Great, but for me, nah.
Yeah.
So we were in lockdown, and there was this, you can do this click and collect, buy stuff. And I was talking to a good friend of mine, Martin Bailey, here at Muriwai, who I've known since we were in our 20s together. We've worked in advertising together and Illustrator. And I'd say, how do you do your work? And he's been trying to talk me into using a computer for years and years. And he knows I don't really like computers, not that much. They have their uses. But he said, well, look, I've got this drawing program and I do my work on an iPad Pro now. And then I import it, export it, download it, upload it, whatever, to his computer. He does the final work on the computer. So online I bought myself an iPad Pro. And what I do is I take my final pencil image, I photograph it on the iPad, and I literally do the colouring in on the iPad. I follow the outline, the pencil outline I've done, and I just colour in on the iPad, and it allows me to get those really flat areas of colour with no variation and that very graphic image. So it's the colour is finished on the iPad.
Is it Photoshop, the program?
No, not Photoshop. The program I use is called Procreate.
Oh, Procreate, yeah.
And I'm probably, like, when I sit down and use a computer, I'm probably using 1 or 2% of what that computer's capable of doing. And I'm pretty sure I'm doing the same thing with that Procreate drawing program. I'm using it probably at its most basic level. But it allows me to achieve the final effect that I want to do.
So it's really just the colouring and the outlining.
The outline's all done on paper. It's colour. It's the colour.
But do you do the outline? Go over the outline with?
I go over the outline. So I take my image on paper. There's a camera in the iPad, just like there is on your phone. I get it really flat on a nice sunny day on the living room floor, photograph it, and then I sit down and trace over and fill in the colour.
And do you enjoy that process on the computer? Does it feel artistic
It's
to you?
actually no different to colouring in with pens or paint as I normally would. But what it does allow me to do that I love is it allows me to fix my mistakes quite easily. And there's a lot of those. There's a lot of mistakes. If you're not making mistakes, you're not making anything, right?
Yeah.
It allows me to fix my mistakes, and it allows me to tweak the colour.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, before I'd actually have a spare bit of paper next to me and I'd be colouring on that, or a spare bit of canvas. I'm looking at the colour on that and going, no, that's not quite right. That's not quite right. But with this, you can actually do the colour and go, that's not quite right. And you just change it on the actual thing you're working on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So that's kind of fun. And, I still do drawings on paper and the whole thing's on paper. This is quite a new process for me using the iPad for the finishing. But I actually prefer to not use anything technical, but it works for this particular series I'm working on.
It works really
So
well.
I am enjoying that process.
Can you see yourself doing the same kind of ideas, but maybe with paintbrush at any point?
Yeah, well, when I was doing the primary series of the limited edition, which is 100 of each animal, of each print, of each image, I was talking to my good friend Sandy Clark, who's an artist and an art collector, and she explained to me that as an artist, when you're doing a limited edition, it is considered the done thing to actually do artist proof, or special artist's edition, and you can do that on another material or another size. So these images, having grown up with these ones over in Canada that are like on a cedar longhouse, and they're massive, or on a canoe or a totem pole, these things look good up big. This style of artwork looks good. The bigger the better, almost, you know. So I'm printing some on canvas up really large, about 900 by 900 mil. And I was initially going to do them as a painting, but I thought, no, like if I print them rather than paint them, I can still get that really clean, flat graphic image.
And that's on canvas.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
But I might paint some of these images as well.
It'd be interesting to see how it feels.
Yeah. Well, I've got, I'm working on these and going, in the back of my head, I've got to do a gannet, I've got to do a pukeko, I've got to do a gecko. I really want to do a weta. Weta would be amazing in this style. And people that look at my art, friends, family, people I don't know, they go, oh, have you thought of doing a shark? Have you thought of doing this? Where do you stop?
Yeah.
The world is full of beautiful animals,
That feels like you've got a lot more to do with this series.
Yeah, well, my brother-in-law, these images work really well as tattoos.
Yeah, they would.
Like, as you've probably seen on my back,
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law, who loves tattoos, he said, oh, would you do me a hammerhead shark? So I'm getting a list of things I've got to do, for people.
I can see this series, in some form going on for a long time.
It's like I said, where do you stop? I go for a walk in the bush or a walk along the beach here at Muriwai, and I'm inspired every day by nature.
It's a good place to live for that.
Oh, wonderful place.
That's for sure. And then how do you find that sort of, potential tension between making what you want to make and making what you think will sell or what people want?
Well, as we were talking about earlier, I worked in advertising. So I had to prostitute myself. I had to draw what I was told to draw or what I was asked to draw on demand all day, every day.
Yeah.
Here's a storyboard that you got to do for toothpaste. Here's, we're going to do a TV commercial for this airline, and you got to do that. We need a poster for this car. So I had to draw all the time. So as I was saying before, I became cynical about it. I didn't enjoy it, and it sucked all the joy out of it. So now when I'm working on my own art, I do what I want to do. I do, of course, think about if I'm doing my art to sell it as a limited edition print or a painting, I will quite often go, hey, people really like fantails. I'll draw a fantail. People love birds, so I'll do more birds than sea animals and insects and reptiles.
Yeah, but it's still within your.
But you know what people like. But yeah, like if I feel like doing a praying mantis, I'll do a praying mantis.
That's actually
and
a good
if
idea.
it doesn't sell, that's
mantis.
okay. That's okay.
Yeah,
I love praying mantises. So
it's a balance, isn't it?
Yes,
in a way.
Yeah.
But it's great that you can just be doing what you love.
Yeah,
and then people are loving it. So
yes, people do seem to be reacting to it really well.
Yeah, really do. Okay, that's so interesting. I guess it would be hard for you to know exactly where you're going to be heading from here, because I do feel like we were saying there's a lot for you to explore within this series. Have you any idea of what's in the future for you?
Well, I'm going to keep working on the series simply because I'm enjoying it so much, and other people seem to be enjoying it. I've got an exhibition coming up very shortly at the Kumiu Arts Centre, in the beautiful pod gallery, the new pod gallery at the back of the Kumiu Arts Centre. Wonderful place. Yeah. So much good art going on there.
Yeah, it's a great place.
It's a great community hub. Good music going on there too, and classes. My exhibition is called Pacific Crossing, of course, at the Kumiu Arts Centre in Kumiu. The exhibition is starting on the 7th of April. It's running through to the 1st of May. The opening night, which you're invited to,
thank you. I'll be
there. Friday the 9th of April.
It's my birthday.
It's your birthday.
Yeah, it's a good omen.
Oh, well, look, the beers are on me.
I'll be there.
Let me put a glass of wine in your hand. So I'm very excited about that. Yvonne and Jago at the Kumiu Arts Centre have been hugely supportive of me and my art. It's been great to work with. So I've got that exhibition coming up. I'm working towards getting my work into a few galleries at the moment.
Okay.
I've got my work in the Fantail House in Parnell. It's a lovely gallery and retail space. Really like it there.
Yeah, it's great.
And I've got my work in a beautiful gallery up north on the Old Russell Road, the Gallery Helena Bay, which is all sorts of wonderful artists from the northern part of the North Island are in that gallery. Yeah. Love that place.
I'll put those links to those places in your blog.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
So I've got my work in there, but I'm looking at getting my work into a couple more places at the moment. And at some point, I know I'm going to feel I've kind of done my dash working in this style with these images, and there's other things I'd like to do. I'd like to do more of my oil painting. I love working in ballpoint pen, so I'd love to do a series just of drawings in ballpoint pen. Ballpoint pen, it's pretty humble. It's quite underrated as a medium, but ballpoint pen on the right paper is a fabulous medium to work in. Beautiful. So there's lots of stuff I could do. It's where do I stop?
Yeah, so many ideas, not enough time.
Yeah.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's a good problem to have.
It is.
Better than no ideas, I guess. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that's very exciting. And you've also got the Muriwai Arts group show in May.
Yes, we have got Muriwai Arts down at the Surf Club here at Muriwai in May. Looking forward to that, the Leap of Faith exhibition. And you're one of the organisers, so you've been working really hard on that, Mandy. Yep. So thank you for all your hard work.
You're very welcome.
And to Nikki and Donna as well.
Thanks, Mum.
And as you know, I'm also involved with the Muriwai Arts Open Studios group, which work very much with the Muriwai Arts. So we had a very successful Open Studios exhibition October last year. Good from Scratch, run by Mike and B. Hosted some of the artists, including me. That was a lovely space. So we'll have another one of those coming up probably around about October this year, with open studios all around Muriwai.
Yeah, that sounds
and
great.
Good From Scratch will be involved with that as well.
And do you actually have a studio, Marlon, at the moment, or are you planning on building one?
Danielle and I have one. We built our own house 12 years ago, and one room in the house, we refer to it as the office, but it's like office, studio, what have you. And we've got his and hers desks with his and hers computers and a whole lot of shelves and a whole lot of art gear and drawing gear. And I've got this great big old kauri desk that I bought off my mate Colin Relihan back in about 1981 or 82. And I still sit at that desk, and it's my favourite place to work. When I work on bigger stuff, it's the dining room table. We've got a beautiful big living room with a big stone fireplace and big dining room table.
And a beautiful view.
And a beautiful view.
Yeah.
And I just work at that table. I worked right through lockdown at that table on an animation project for my good friend Nashon Zalk, who's a documentary filmmaker. So I sat at that dining room table right through the first lockdown back in this time last year, drawing at the dining room table for the month or two we were in lockdown, whatever it was. So
it was kind of the beginning, wasn't it, of your getting back into your drawing?
Yeah. So kind of the whole house is my studio, really. Yeah,
I guess, and it's nice because you've got other places you can show your work, like Good From Scratch, at times. You know, around the community where you can use that instead of having to show in your own space.
Well, the thing is with our house is there's so many windows, and we've bought art off all these other wonderful local artists, like Tanya Blong and Gail. And I've got work from my friend Paul Woodruff that I've had for years. So all the little bits of available wall space are already covered with other people's art. So I don't have a lot of space to show my stuff. But the Good From Scratch space was a lovely space.
It's a beautiful
and of course
space.
The food up there is wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so just kind of working towards finishing off, Marlon. It's been so interesting hearing your amazing stories. Thank you. I'd just like to know, what's your favourite place in New Zealand and why? Oh,
very tough question because it's such an amazing country. It's hard to pick. I would be tossing up between Muriwai, where we live, and the place we love. I love that wild West Coast energy. Like it's incredible, And I love Great Barrier Island. I was out there a couple of weeks ago with my good mate Jeremy, and we did some fishing, we did some snorkeling and diving, and some walks in the bush. And I love Great Barrier Island.
That's beautiful, isn't it?
Wonderful place.
Yeah, it's pretty untouched still at the moment.
Yeah.
May not be for long. Hopefully not. Yeah, okay, very good. And you've done a lot of travelling, so what would you say was your favourite place out of New Zealand?
Out of New Zealand, that's where I grew up in Canada. I'm frightened to go back because if I go back, I might not want to leave again.
Really?
I love it there. But Norway, I loved Norway.
Okay, I've never been there.
Yeah, Norway's fabulous.
Is it?
People are wonderful. They're Vikings, for God's sake.
Yeah.
You're
basically a Viking.
I'm part Viking, Norway's just beautiful. Yeah, stunning. I went right up to the Arctic Circle, saw the Northern Lights.
Wow.
Climbed a mountain there, in the springtime. Norway's fabulous. Really, really beautiful. But, there's beautiful places all over the world. It's really hard to pick. Danielle and I were in Peru, as I mentioned, a couple of years ago. And Peru was just brilliant. God, I'm glad I did that before COVID, before lockdown.
Yeah, we're all sort of stuck here for the moment. But, hopefully not too much longer.
Yeah, Peru was fabulous.
And thank you. And just the last thing, for all the people listening, what advice do you have for people starting out on their creative journey?
It's a bit like the Nike thing, just do it. you know. I think the worst kind of advice you can get in this world is free advice. So you've got to be careful of the people that give you free advice. So when you come to people with an idea going, I'm thinking about doing these paintings, or I'm thinking about doing this pottery, or I want to be a jeweler, I'd take the Australian angle on it rather than the New Zealand angle, because what I find happens in New Zealand, because here in New Zealand we do tend to be a little bit more conservative. So you go, hey, I've got this great idea for this new project. Kiwis quite often, tell me if I'm wrong, but quite often they go, oh no, that's going to be too hard and it might not work because of this and all of that. But you go to Australia and they go, that's a great idea, mate. You should do that. Go for it, mate. They call it the lucky country for a good reason. So I think you've got to have a little bit of an Australian attitude to it. If you've got an idea, go for it. If you want to do something, do it. And maybe if you're worried about other people or your wider audience not liking it or not wanting it, that's okay. Just do it for yourself.
Yeah.
If you've got that creative urge to do something, be creative.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just do it. I agree.
Because creative matters, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Little plug there. Yeah, no, I agree. And just getting into it and keeping it personal to start with if you want to, until you feel you're ready to take it out into the big wide world, which is never easy. When
I was a little kid, I just drew and drew and drew like no one else ever saw it. Maybe my mum and dad. And now I'm happy to show it to other people. I've been showing it to,
it can take time, can't it? Yeah. Oh, that's great advice. Thanks, Marlon. And it's been an absolute pleasure sitting down with you. Thank you so much for coming to talk on my little podcast. That my 6th guest. So you're very trusting to put yourself out there with me. And it's been a really lovely chat. And thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure for me too, Mandy. Thank you so much.
Thank you.